The hum of the fluorescent lights was the only sound that dared to move through cell block C. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant and loneliness, the kind that settled into the cracks of the concrete and the bones of the people trapped inside it. Officer Lena Hartley walked her nightly patrol with the same measured pace she'd kept for 12 years. Her boots clicked softly against the linoleum floor, her keys jingling with quiet authority, a rhythm that reminded her she was still in control, even when her life outside these walls felt anything but. The cells on either side of the corridor were dark, except for the dull glow of reading lights some inmates weren't supposed to have. Lena's gaze brushed over them with weary tolerance. Rules mattered here, but survival mattered more. Tonight, though, her steps slowed as she reached cell 2479. Inside, Maya Collins was sitting cross-legged on her bed, her hands resting on a stack of papers, sketches, maybe. She looked up at the exact moment Lena's flashlight beam touched her face. For a second, their eyes met through the bars, a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that neither belonged fully to the world they were in. Lena cleared her throat and shifted her stance, tightening her grip on the flashlight. "Lights out means lights out," she said, her tone even but softer than it should have been. Maya didn't argue. She never did. Instead, she folded the papers neatly and said, "Some of yous don't sleep easy in cages." The words hung in the stale air, heavier than they should have been. Lena could have written her up for talking back, but something about the calm defiance in Maya's voice disarmed her. She just nodded and moved on. Her reflection in the glass door at the end of the hall caught her attention. Uniform crisp, posture perfect, eyes tired. It struck her that she looked more like an inmate pretending to be free than a guard keeping others in. In the staff room later, Lena poured herself bitter coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. The clock read 2:37 a.m. She sat alone, the hum of the vending machine filling the silence. A photograph of her ex-husband still peeked from her wallet. She didn't know why she hadn't thrown it away. She traced her thumb over the faded image, thinking about the last time someone had touched her hand without expecting something. She told herself she was fine. She always did. But lately, the long shifts felt heavier, the walls closer. Her colleagues kept their distance. She preferred it that way. Detachment made survival easier. Yet the moment she'd looked into Maya's eyes, something inside her had stirred, a flicker she hadn't felt in years. Back in the corridor, her flashlight trembled just slightly in her hand. She paused outside Maya's cell once more. The inmate was lying on her side now, eyes closed, breathing slow. The papers were gone, hidden somewhere beneath the mattress. Lena found herself wondering what was drawn on them, what world Maya tried to escape into when the lights went out. She told herself it didn't matter. She was a guard, Maya a prisoner. There were lines that kept order, lines she had sworn never to cross. Still, as she turned away, her gaze lingered too long on the bars, on the space between them that seemed to shrink every night. "Hartley, you're running late on rounds," a voice crackled through her radio. "Copy that," she replied, her voice steady again. She quickened her pace toward the control room, forcing her thoughts back into silence. But the image of those sketches, the calm defiance in Maya's eyes, followed her, like a whisper behind the concrete walls. By the time she signed the end-of-shift log, dawn had begun bleeding through the narrow windows, washing the corridor in pale blue light. For everyone else, it was just another night done. For Lena Hartley, it was the start of something she couldn't yet name, a quiet pull toward the one inmate she should have ignored. Tomorrow's shift would bring her back to cell 2479. And the space between guard and prisoner would begin to thin. 2 months earlier, before that late-night stare through the bars, Maya Collins was just another name on Lena Hartley's clipboard, inmate 2479, convicted of wire fraud, sentence 8 years, disciplinary record moderate. Nothing about her stood out at first. But the warden had recently implemented a new rehabilitation program, and Lena, being one of the few trusted officers, was assigned to oversee inmate counseling sessions. That's where it began, not in the corridor under flickering lights, but in a cramped office that smelled of stale paper and bleach. The security camera in the corner blinked red, always watching, always recording. "Sit wherever you like," Lena had said on the first day, keeping her voice flat, neutral. Maya sat, folding her hands neatly on the table. Her orange uniform contrasted sharply with her calm demeanor. "You're not like the others," she said, almost immediately. Lena raised an eyebrow. "Others? The guards? They look at us like we're already ghosts." Lena didn't answer. She flipped through the case file, pretending not to feel the heat of Maya's gaze. Maya's record read like a story of charm and deceit, a woman who'd conned investors, lied her way into luxury, then lost everything overnight. But beneath the crimes, Lena saw something familiar, desperation disguised as confidence. Their first few meetings stayed professional. Lena asked about Maya's progress, behavior, rehabilitation goals. Maya responded with practiced calm. Yet every question Lena asked seemed to turn back on her. "You ever wonder what makes someone cross a line?" Maya had asked one afternoon, her tone almost curious. "Everyone has limits," Lena replied. "The smart ones don't test them. Or maybe they just haven't found the right reason to." The words lingered. Lena ignored the faint pull in her chest, the echo of something dangerous. She ended the session early that day, citing paperwork. But later, lying awake in her apartment, she caught herself replaying that conversation, Maya's voice, calm and knowing. As weeks passed, their dynamic changed. The counseling sessions grew less about reports and more about honesty, the kind Lena hadn't shared with anyone in years. Maya spoke of the loneliness of confinement, how silence could turn into a weapon. Lena, against her better judgment, listened too closely. One evening, when rain hammered against the facility's roof, Maya whispered, "You ever feel trapped, Officer Hartley?" Lena hesitated. "We all have our cages." For a moment, neither moved. The hum of the fluorescent bulb filled the silence. There was a softness in Maya's expression, something that shouldn't have been there. And when Lena finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Session's over." But it wasn't. Not really. After that night, boundaries began to blur. Maya started asking about Lena's life outside, if she lived alone, if she had family, what she did on her days off. Lena gave vague answers, but her tone softened each time. She didn't notice that Maya's eyes flickered toward the ceiling camera before speaking, or that her smiles were timed, small, deliberate, manipulative. Still, Lena felt something shift inside her, a dangerous empathy. She told herself she was helping Maya open up, but deep down, she knew the connection had crossed into something else. Something personal. One late afternoon, as the session ended, Maya stood and said quietly, "You're the only person here who sees me as more than a number." Lena froze. The red light on the camera blinked steadily. "You should go," she said. Maya nodded but didn't move. Sometimes, even good people get caught doing bad things. The trick is knowing which part of you survives it. That night, Lena stayed late to review reports but found herself staring at the clock instead, her thoughts circling that sentence like a warning. She didn't know it yet, but every word had been calculated. Maya's game had already begun, and Lena was no longer just her guard. She was her next move. Tomorrow the camera would blink again, and neither woman would see the danger forming just beneath its steady red light. By the following month, the change in Lena Hartley was quiet but visible, the kind that people noticed only when it was too late. She stayed longer on her night rounds, lingered near cell block C when she didn't have to, and filled out incident reports with half the usual detail. Her crisp uniform and strict tone still carried authority, but something in her eyes had softened, something that didn't belong inside a correctional facility. The cameras noticed first. The red dots that blinked in every hallway caught moments no one was meant to see, Lena pausing outside Maya Collins' cell just a few seconds too long, her hand brushing the bars before walking away. Later, in the control room, Officer Tom Ricks scrolled through the playback, frowning. He'd worked alongside Lena for years. She was disciplined by the book, the last person he'd expect to bend rules for anyone. But lately she'd been different. Distracted. Secretive. "You pulling doubles again?" Tom asked one morning in the break room, half a smirk on his face. "Trying to keep up with the paperwork," Lena replied, not meeting his eyes. He studied her. "You've been keeping an eye on 2479 a lot lately." Lena's hand froze on her coffee mug. "That inmate's a flight risk," she said flatly. Tom shrugged, but the suspicion stayed. Just saying. Cameras see more than we do. That night, Lena walked her rounds slower than usual. Inside her chest, something restless throbbed, guilt, fear, or something worse she refused to name. When she reached Maya's cell, the inmate was awake, sketching again. You shouldn't be up, Lena murmured. Maya smiled without looking up. Couldn't sleep. You always walk by at this time. The way she said you made Lena's stomach tighten. Go to bed, Collins. Maya tilted her head, her eyes glinting under the dim light. You could call me Maya. Everyone else does. Lena turned away, forcing professionalism back into her posture. But the next night, she found herself doing something she'd never done, slipping Maya an extra blanket after lights out. The night after that, an unauthorized phone call. She justified it as compassion, small mercies in a place designed to strip people of their humanity. But deep down, she knew better. Soon, Maya began testing limits, small favors that turned into quiet demands. The calls help me stay sane, she'd say. You wouldn't want me to lose control, would you? Each request chipped away at Lena's resolve. What had started as empathy began to look like obedience. She couldn't see it yet, but Maya was in control now, her voice in Lena's head louder than the rules she'd lived by. Tom noticed the growing distance. He watched Lena skip security checks, delay reports, and leave shift logs half empty. Something was happening, something dangerous. But when he tried to ask again, Lena shut him out completely. Drop it, Tom. I'm fine. But she wasn't. She knew every small favor left a trace. A missing log entry, a shortened camera angle, a silence in the record that someone would notice. Still, every time she told herself this is the last time, Maya's voice came back, soft and persuasive. By the end of that week, Maya had her late lights, her extra calls, her safety from violent inmates, all bought with Lena's quiet complicity. The guard who once enforced the rules now bent them in secret, wrapped in a web she couldn't untangle. And somewhere in the control room, Tom cued another playback, his finger hovering over the pause button, realizing the truth. Lena wasn't protecting an inmate anymore. She was protecting something far more dangerous. It was late, too late for anyone to be awake, when Lena Hartley paused outside Maya Collins' cell and heard her name carried softly through the dark. You left your notebook in the office? Maya said, voice low, teasing. Might want to pick it up before someone finds the notes you've been writing. Lena froze. The thin layer of calm she'd been clinging to cracked instantly. She hadn't realized Maya noticed her scribbles, the ones she wrote after every session. Half reports, half confessions. Words that would destroy her career if seen by the wrong eyes. How did you? Lena began, but Maya's quiet laughter cut her off. Relax, Officer Hartley. I didn't read it much. Something inside Lena twisted. The careful line between control and exposure had shifted, and Maya was the one holding it now. Over the next week, the dynamic between them changed completely. Maya no longer waited for favors, she demanded them. Small things at first, a packet of cigarettes, an extra shower, unmonitored time in the laundry room. Each time Lena said no, Maya reminded her how fragile secrets could be. Imagine what the warden would think, Maya would say with a smile. Those long sessions, all that trust. You think anyone would believe it was just therapy? Lena's anger flared, but it burned inward. She'd spent years building a reputation of control, and now one inmate's voice could end her. Every shift became a balancing act, enforcing order while quietly breaking it to keep her secret buried. In the staff locker room, Tom Ricks noticed her shaking hands as she buttoned her shirt. You good? He asked, watching her too closely. I said I'm fine. He nodded, but his eyes lingered, that same suspicion, growing heavier. Lena avoided him for the rest of the day. By evening, Maya pushed further. There's something I need you to bring in, she whispered during cell checks. Lena's chest tightened. You're out of your mind. Just a phone, Maya said softly. You think I'd tell on you? We're past that. No, Lena hissed. You don't understand the risk. I understand perfectly. Maya leaned forward, her voice dripping with quiet menace. You care about me. That's the risk. The words hit like a slap. Lena walked away, pulse racing, but she couldn't stop thinking about them. You care about me. It wasn't true, she told herself. It couldn't be. Yet the ache in her chest said otherwise. Sleep became impossible. Guilt and fear tangled together until she couldn't tell which one was louder. In her apartment, she'd pour whiskey into a chipped glass and stare at the ceiling, hearing Maya's voice in every creak. The next night she did it, slipped a small package through the vent during her rounds. The moment it left her hand, her stomach sank. She told herself it would be the last time. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't. Maya greeted her the next day with a smile that looked almost affectionate. See? You can trust me. Trust. The word echoed through Lena's mind like a taunt. She wanted to hate Maya, for manipulating her, for knowing exactly which parts of her were weak. But every confrontation ended the same. Maya's calm gaze, her careful tone, her ability to twist compassion into compliance. Days blurred. Lena started forgetting simple procedures, signing off logs, filing reports. Tom's questions became sharper, his watchfulness more constant. She could feel him closing in, just as Maya's grip tightened from the inside. By the end of the week, Lena no longer knew which scared her more, exposure from her colleagues or the thought of losing Maya's approval. The lines had vanished completely. And as she walked the corridor that night, she didn't notice the red camera light blinking overhead, recording everything, proof that the game had only just begun. The fight erupted without warning. It was mid-afternoon in the recreation yard, a rare moment of sunlight spilling between the fences. Lena Hartley was patrolling near the benches when the first scream cut through the chatter. 2 inmates clashed near the weight area, fists, blood, chaos. Within seconds, the yard exploded into violence. Code red. Block C yard, the radio crackled. Lena moved fast, pushing through the crowd as officers rushed in. But her eyes weren't on the brawl. They were searching for one face. Maya Collins. She spotted her near the fence, caught in the surge of bodies, her small frame pressed against the concrete. Another inmate swung wildly, the blade of a sharpened toothbrush flashing in the sun. Instinct overrode training. Lena shoved through the chaos, grabbed Maya's arm, and pulled her out of the fight, shielding her with her own body. "Stay down," she shouted, pressing her hand to Maya's shoulder. Maya's eyes met hers, wide, terrified, grateful. In that instant, the world narrowed to just the two of them. The riot around them blurred into sound and color. Lena's hands trembled as she brushed blood from Maya's cheek. "You're okay," she whispered. "I've got you." "Always?" Maya asked, her voice breaking, almost childlike. Lena hesitated, the words catching in her throat. "Always," she said before she could stop herself. The cameras caught it all. The lingering touch, the whisper, the look that crossed the line between duty and desire. When the alarms finally ceased and order was restored, the yard looked like a war zone. Inmates sat cuffed on the ground, blood streaked the concrete. Lena escorted Maya back to medical, ignoring the curious stares from her fellow officers. Her uniform was torn, her hair disheveled, her heart pounding far too fast. Inside the medical bay, Lena stayed longer than necessary, watching the nurse clean a small cut on Maya's arm. "You didn't have to do that," Maya said softly. "You could have been hurt." Lena tried to sound stern. "It's my job." But Maya smiled faintly. "No, it's not." The words lingered, dangerous and tender all at once. Lena turned away before she could answer. Hours later, in the control room, Tom Ricks replayed the footage from the yard. At first, it was routine, assessing the sequence of the riot, identifying aggressors. But then he froze the frame, Lena's hand cupping Maya's face, her lips moving close to the inmate's ear. He zoomed in slightly, heart sinking. He knew what it meant. The kind of mistake that ended careers. Maybe even lives. He didn't report it, not yet. Instead, he saved a copy to a flash drive and slid it quietly into his locker. Whatever was happening between Lena and Maya, it wasn't over. And Tom needed to know how deep it went. Meanwhile, Lena sat alone in the break room, staring at her blood-stained sleeve. She could still feel Maya's heartbeat against her chest, the whisper that wasn't part of any report she'd ever write. She knew what she'd done crossed every line she was sworn to uphold, but she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Outside the room, the surveillance monitor flickered, showing the frozen image again and again, Lena's hand on Maya's face. A moment she couldn't erase. And somewhere down the hall, Tom's quiet investigation had already begun. 2 days after the yard riot, the air in Ridgefield Correctional felt heavier, the kind of tension that hummed beneath every conversation and every shift. Lena Hartley moved through her rounds with mechanical precision, her face unreadable. But inside, she was unraveling. Every time she looked up, she imagined the camera watching, recording, remembering. In the dim staff corridor behind the control room, Tom Ricks waited for her. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed with something between concern and accusation. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Lena stiffened. "Not now, Tom. I've got rounds." He stepped closer. "You think I didn't see the footage?" The blood drained from her face. "What footage?" "Don't do that." His voice stayed low, but the edge in it was sharp. "You and Collins. In the yard. The way you held her. The whisper. It's all there." Lena's throat went dry. "You don't understand." "I understand plenty," he cut in. "You're risking everything for a con who's using you. You think she actually cares? She's manipulating you, Lena. It's what she does." The words hit their mark, but Lena's pride rose in defense. "You don't know her." Tom's frustration cracked. "I know you. You don't break rules unless someone's got their hands around your throat or your heart." The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Lena turned away, pressing her palms against the wall to steady herself. "It's not like that," she whispered, though even she didn't believe it anymore. Tom sighed, softer now. "Look, I haven't reported it. Not yet. But if this keeps up, someone else will. You've got to walk away before she ruins you." Lena finally faced him. Her eyes, once sharp with authority, now looked hollow. "It's too late for that." Neither noticed the faint shuffle down the hall. Behind a half-closed door, Maya Collins stood frozen, listening. She caught only fragments, footage, ruin, walk away. The words sank into her like stones. Panic coiled in her stomach. She'd built her survival on control, on keeping Lena afraid enough to obey but close enough to care. Now that balance was breaking. If Lena turned cold, if Tom interfered, Maya would lose everything, her protection, her leverage, her freedom. That night, in her cell, Maya sat under the dim light, her mind racing. She pulled a torn notebook from beneath her mattress and began to write, quickly, furiously. Her handwriting wavered, uneven. "If anything happens to me, this letter is to be given to the warden. Officer Lena Hartley has been meeting with me privately for months. I believe she's hiding things. I don't feel safe anymore." Her pen paused. Her jaw clenched. The words tasted bitter. She added one final line. "She's dangerous when cornered." Maya folded the paper, sealed it inside an envelope she'd stolen from the commissary, and tucked it behind a loose brick near her bunk. It wasn't truth, not entirely, but truth didn't matter. Protection did. Down the corridor, Lena sat in the empty break room, her reflection staring back at her from the vending machine's glass. Tom's words echoed in her head, twisting with guilt and fear. "She's using you. Walk away." But every time she thought of turning Maya in, she saw the same face, frightened, fragile, needing her. The line between victim and manipulator had blurred beyond recognition. When she finally stood, her decision wasn't clear, only inevitable. She would confront Maya. Tomorrow. End this before anyone else got hurt. In her cell, Maya pressed her hand against the brick, ensuring the letter was secure. She didn't know that her words, desperate, false, and prophetic, would soon become the trigger for everything that followed. Outside, the corridor lights flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere between truth and lies, both women prepared for a confrontation neither could survive unscarred. The prison at night was a different world. The hum of fluorescent lights softened to a distant buzz, the clatter of daytime chaos replaced by whispers and footsteps echoing through long, empty corridors. Lena Hartley walked with her head down, every sound amplifying her dread. She had told herself this was closure, one final conversation to sever the chain between her and Maya Collins. But deep down, she knew it was already too late for clean endings. Her heart pounded as she reached the old storage corridor behind the infirmary, a blind spot between cameras. It was a place she'd found months ago when she first started sneaking contraband for Maya. A place built for secrets. Maya was already there, waiting in the faint glow of a flickering bulb. Her orange jumpsuit was half unzipped, sleeves tied at the waist, her arms crossed with that same defiant smirk that had once drawn Lena in. "You came," Maya said softly. "Didn't think you had the guts." Lena swallowed hard. "This ends tonight, Maya. Whatever this was, it's over." Maya tilted her head. "Over? After everything you've done for me? For us?" "There is no us," Lena said, voice trembling. "There never was. You used me." For a moment, Maya looked wounded. Then the mask slipped back into place, replaced by a cruel little smile. "Used you? Maybe. Or maybe I just saw who you really were, someone who wanted to be wanted. You were so easy, Lena. So desperate to matter to someone." Lena's breath caught in her throat. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" Maya stepped closer, voice low, mocking. "You risked your job, your life, for a felon. You think anyone's going to believe you were the victim here? You're just another guard who couldn't keep her hands clean." Lena's hands curled into fists. She wanted to walk away, to end it right there. But Maya's words sliced deeper with every breath. "I heard you talking to Tom," Maya continued, her tone turning cold. "You think he's protecting you? He's saving himself. You're the one they'll burn." "How do you?" Lena stopped herself. Her chest was tight, panic clawing its way up her throat. "You've been listening?" Maya smiled faintly. "You taught me where the blind spots are. It wasn't hard." The air between them pulsed with tension. Lena took a shaky step back, but Maya followed, her voice rising. "Go ahead, run. Tell the warden. Confess. But when they find my letter..." Lena froze. "What letter?" Maya's smile widened, wicked and triumphant. "A little insurance. Let's just say, if something happens to me, it won't look good for you." For a long moment, the silence between them was unbearable. Lena's vision blurred at the edges, her breath ragged. "You wouldn't," she whispered. Maya leaned in close enough for Lena to feel her breath. "Try me." The words snapped something inside her. "Stop it." Lena shouted, shoving Maya backward, not hard, just enough to create distance. But the corridor was narrow, the floor slick with condensation from a leaking pipe. Maya stumbled. Her heel caught the edge of a metal cart. There was a sickening crack. Lena froze. Maya crumpled to the ground, her head striking the metal shelf behind her before she slid down, motionless. The silence that followed was deafening, no alarms, no footsteps, just the harsh sound of Lena's own breathing. "Maya!" Lena dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she reached for her. A thin stream of blood trickled from behind Maya's ear, dark against her pale skin. Her eyes were open but empty. "No, no, no," Lena's voice broke. She pressed her fingers to Maya's throat, desperate for a pulse. Nothing. Her mind spiraled. The cameras, Tom, the letter. Everything she'd feared was now real. She staggered backward, gasping for air as guilt and terror collided inside her. Down the hall, somewhere beyond the iron doors, a security alarm chirped briefly before cutting off. A reminder that the night still belonged to the system, and every secret eventually came to light. Lena stood frozen, staring at the lifeless body on the floor, her lips trembling as the words escaped her in a whisper meant for no one. "What have I done?" And as the corridor fell silent again, the hum of the lights seemed to grow louder, steady, mechanical, unfeeling, marking the beginning of a cover-up that would soon consume everything. The sound of Maya's head hitting metal wouldn't stop echoing in Lena's mind. Even as she knelt beside the still body, the sharp, metallic crack replayed like a haunting drumbeat under her skin. Panic hit in waves, shallow breaths, trembling hands, a racing heart that felt like it might burst through her chest. "No one can know," she whispered. "No one." Her training should have guided her to call it in, to perform CPR, to follow procedure, But Lena's mind wasn't working like a correctional officer anymore. It was working like a trapped animal. She dragged Maya's body from the storage corridor toward the empty medical ward. Each pull left faint streaks of red along the linoleum floor, and Lena paused only once to wipe them with her sleeve, sobbing silently as she did. The ward was cold, bathed in bluish light. The cameras here were limited, one in the hall, none inside the isolation cell. She'd checked it countless times before, back when this place was their meeting spot. Lena laid Maya gently on the bed, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, voice cracking. "You were supposed to stop talking." She turned away quickly before the tears could fall again. This was no time for weakness. On autopilot, she went to the medicine cabinet. Most drawers were locked, but she knew where the nurse kept emergency keys. From a tray, she grabbed a bottle of old sleeping pills, confiscated contraband that had been logged but never disposed of. Perfect, she thought. Too perfect. She scattered a few pills beside the bed, unscrewed the bottle, and placed it in Maya's limp hand. Then, from her own locker, she tore a bedsheet and wrapped it loosely around Maya's body, a clumsy attempt to make it look like an inmate's desperate act of escape. The smell of bleach filled the air as Lena scrubbed the metal cart, the floor, her own hands, over and over until her skin turned raw. But no matter how much she wiped, she couldn't erase the dark spots from her mind. Her reflection in the mirror startled her, blood on her cheek, eyes hollow, hair sticking to her face. She barely looked human. She stumbled back to the security office, still shaking. It was 3:47 a.m. The facility's surveillance room glowed with rows of monitors, their grainy footage looping through cell blocks and corridors. Lena found the feed for the storage hall, camera 16. Her stomach twisted when she saw the faint blur of movement from earlier, herself dragging Maya's body. Her fingers hovered over the delete key. Once she pressed it, there would be no undoing it. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Then she did it, delete. The screen went black. She ejected the backup disk, snapped it in half, and fed the shards into the trash chute that led to the incinerator. By the time dawn began to color the sky, the evidence was gone. Or so she thought. In her locker, she found her uniform top, streaked with blood and dust. She hesitated, then carried it out to the facility's rear courtyard, where the old maintenance furnace was still warm. The fabric caught quickly, curling and darkening under orange flames. The smell of burnt polyester made her gag. When she returned inside, her hands were blackened with soot. She stared down at them for a long time before washing them again and again in cold water. But as she dried them, she saw a faint red mark on her wrist. Maya's blood missed in the panic. A mark that refused to fade. The alarm sounded at 6 a.m., signaling shift change. Lena flinched, her nerves raw. Outside the window, officers began their rounds. In cell block C, the inmates were stirring. One would soon notice that Maya Collins' bed was empty. Lena sat on the edge of the infirmary cot, eyes empty, whispering to herself, "It's done, it's done." But even as she said it, the guilt was already there, crawling beneath her skin, whispering that the night wasn't over. And somewhere in the control room, unseen by her, a small light blinked red. Camera 17, still recording. The following morning, the air around Blackridge Correctional Facility was thick, a blend of bleach, metal, and quiet panic. The news spread fast. Inmate Maya Collins found dead in the medical ward. The parents' suicide. By 9 a.m., the state investigators were already there. The warden had called in Detective Rachel Grant, a woman known for her precision and calm authority, the kind that made liars tremble. Rachel walked through the halls with clipped steps, her heels echoing against the concrete. She'd been here before, corruption cases, smuggling rings, but something about this scene felt different. Too neat. Too deliberate. When she entered the infirmary, 2 crime scene techs were already photographing the bed where Maya's body had been found. Pills scattered beside her hand. Sheet loosely draped across her torso. To anyone else, it looked like a sad end to a guilty life. But Rachel's eyes caught details others missed. The bruising on the wrist, the faint smudge of ash on the floor. "Where's the security footage?" she asked. "Corrupted, ma'am," replied Officer Tom Ricks, standing awkwardly by the door. His eyes darted toward Lena, who sat in a nearby chair, pale and silent. Camera 16 went offline last night. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Just that one? Yes, ma'am, Tom said. Power glitch, maybe. Convenient, Rachel murmured. She crouched near the bed, studying the pills. And who found her? Officer Hartley, Tom answered. Rachel looked up. Lena Hartley, she repeated, her tone shifting slightly. You were the first on scene? Lena nodded, voice faint. Yes, detective. I was doing a late round. Found her like this. Rachel studied her for a long moment. The tremor in Lena's hands, the small burn mark on her sleeve. You've worked here how long? 8 years, Lena said quietly. Then you know how rarely suicides happen inside medical wards, Rachel replied. Especially when inmates don't have access to controlled substances. Lena's mouth went dry. I don't know how she got them. Rachel straightened, her eyes sharp. We'll find out. She turned to the techs. Bag everything. I want full tox and fingerprints on the pill bottle. As the team moved, Tom stepped closer to Rachel. His voice was low. Detective, there's something else. I went through Maya's bunk this morning. Found a sealed envelope hidden inside her mattress. Rachel's brows furrowed. Let me see it. Tom handed her the letter, sealed in evidence plastic. The handwriting was shaky but deliberate. Across the top, it read, "To be opened if something happens to me." Rachel opened it carefully, scanning the words. Her expression hardened. If they find me dead, it won't be suicide. I'm scared of her now. She says she loves me, but I know what love looks like, and this isn't it. Officer Hartley can't control herself anymore. Please don't let her get away with this. The room fell silent. Lena's pulse roared in her ears. Rachel's gaze shifted slowly to her. You want to explain this? Lena shook her head, her throat tight. That's not true. She was manipulating me. She wanted me to protect her. Seems like she was protecting herself, Rachel said, folding the letter. And now she's dead. Lena's composure cracked. You don't understand. She was dangerous, unstable. Rachel cut her off. Save it for your statement. I'm not here for emotions, officer. I'm here for the truth. As the techs bagged the evidence, Rachel noticed one last thing. Faint boot prints leading from the infirmary to the back exit. Not standard inmate shoes. Correctional issue. She didn't mention it yet. She simply turned back to Lena and said quietly, You'll stay available for further questioning. Don't leave the facility. Lena nodded. As Rachel left the ward, Tom lingered in the doorway, watching Lena crumble into her chair, her face buried in her hands. Down the hall, Rachel's phone buzzed. A forensic update. Camera 17 backup file recovered. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Well, she whispered to herself, let's see what really happened last night. And with that, the investigation had only just begun. Detective Rachel Grant sat in the small, windowless observation room, her eyes fixed on the recovered footage from camera 17. The grainy video showed two figures in the corridor, Lena Hartley and Maya Collins, their shadows long against the sterile walls. The timestamp read 11:58 p.m., barely an hour before the suicide. The footage didn't show the moment of violence, but it didn't need to. The body language was enough. The closeness, the whispered exchange, the tension. It spoke of something forbidden, emotional, dangerous. Behind her, a knock broke the silence. Rachel turned. Officer Tom Ricks stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes heavy with sleeplessness. He hesitated before stepping in, clutching a small flash drive in his hand. I should have come forward sooner, he said quietly. Rachel motioned for him to sit. Go on. Tom placed the flash drive on the table like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It's from the backup system. I didn't delete it. Not all of it anyway. You need to see this. Rachel plugged it in. The screen flickered again. Another feed, different angle. This time from weeks before. Lena and Maya, seated close together in the counseling room. No guards. No witnesses. Just two women crossing invisible lines. Rachel leaned forward, jaw tight. How long has this been going on? Tom rubbed his hands over his face. Months, maybe more. I noticed she was covering shifts, staying late. I tried to tell myself it was just kindness. But then I caught them, once during rounds. I saved the clip, thinking I'd confront her privately. I didn't want to destroy her life unless I was sure. He looked up, eyes wet. Now Maya's dead. And I'm part of it. Rachel's tone softened, but only slightly. You didn't kill her, officer. But your silence didn't help her either. Tom nodded, shame heavy on his face. Through the one-way glass, they could see Lena sitting in the adjoining room, hands cuffed, head bowed. She looked smaller now, hollowed out. Rachel rose. I'm going to talk to her. When she entered the room, Lena didn't look up. The silence stretched, fragile and suffocating. Rachel placed the printed stills from the footage on the table. You know what this shows? Lena's voice was a whisper. Yes. Then tell me what really happened that night. Lena's fingers trembled as she traced the edge of a photo, herself and Maya, standing too close. She wanted to end it. Said she'd expose me. I wanted her to stop talking. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to kill her. Rachel's expression stayed neutral, but there was a flicker of empathy in her eyes. You understand this looks premeditated. You deleted footage, burned evidence. I panicked. Lena cried, looking up at her for the first time. Her eyes were red raw. You don't know what it's like to love someone you're not supposed to lose control of your own life piece by piece. Her voice fell into a whisper. She knew how to break me. And she did. Rachel exhaled slowly. Love or manipulation, it doesn't change what happened. Maya's dead. And you covered it up. Lena's breath hitched. I see her every time I close my eyes, she said, clutching her head. Her voice, her face, it won't stop. Flashbacks began to crash over her. Maya's laughter in the counseling room, the first secret glance, the fight, the sound of her skull hitting metal. Each memory tore through her like glass. She gasped, shaking violently, her words tumbling out between sobs. I tried to fix it. I thought if I cleaned it up, if I made it look like suicide, maybe it wouldn't ruin everything. Rachel stood silently for a moment, watching as Lena broke apart completely, the mask of authority gone, leaving only guilt and grief. When the sobs subsided into trembling silence, Rachel spoke quietly, You can't clean blood from your conscience, Lena. It always leaves a mark. Outside the room, Tom watched through the glass, tears in his eyes, his reflection overlapping Lena's shattered figure. Rachel turned back toward the monitor, where the paused video showed Lena and Maya frozen mid-conversation, two women caught between duty and desire, one alive, one ghosted by consequence. And as the hum of the prison lights filled the silence once more, Rachel knew the case wasn't finished. Something about Maya's final moments still didn't fit. She narrowed her eyes at the screen. There's still something missing, she murmured. And with that, the final chapter began to take shape in her mind. The interrogation room was cold, the kind of cold that seeped beneath the skin and settled deep in the bones. The walls were bare except for the faint hum of the overhead vent and the blinking red light of the recorder. Lena Hartley sat motionless in the metal chair, wrists bound, eyes fixed on her reflection in the two-way mirror. Across from her, Detective Rachel Grant adjusted the small microphone on the table. For the record, she said evenly, this is the formal statement of Officer Lena Hartley regarding the death of inmate Maya Collins. Lena didn't look up. Her voice was barely a whisper. You already know what happened. Rachel leaned back, her tone patient but firm. I want to hear it from you. Lena's fingers clenched. It wasn't supposed to go that way. Then tell me how it was supposed to go. A long silence. The ticking of the wall clock filled the space between them, counting the seconds of Lena's unraveling. Finally, she exhaled. I loved her, she said quietly. God help me I did. I know what that sounds like, guard and inmate, it's wrong. I told myself it wasn't real, that I was just trying to help her. But she saw right through me. She knew how lonely I was. Rachel didn't interrupt. She watched the woman across from her, the trembling hands, the vacant stare, as Lena continued, words spilling faster now, like a dam breaking. She made me feel seen, Lena said. No one had done that in years. I thought I was saving her, but she was saving herself. Every favor she asked for, extra calls, late lights, the things I risked for her, it wasn't love. It was leverage. Her breath hitched. When she started threatening to expose us, I panicked. I begged her to stop. She laughed. Said she'd ruin me. Lena's voice cracked, tears glistening on her cheeks. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop talking. Rachel's pen hovered above her notepad. So you pushed her. It wasn't even a push, Lena whispered. It was instinct. She kept coming closer, saying those words, twisting the knife. I just wanted silence. And then, her voice broke into a sob. Then she fell. The room grew still again. Rachel finally said, "And afterward?" Lena pressed her palms to her eyes. Afterward, I wasn't thinking like a person anymore. I was thinking like someone cornered. I cleaned up, deleted footage, burned my shirt. Every step I took, I thought I was fixing it, but I was just burying myself deeper. Her voice lowered, soft and haunted. You want to know the worst part? I still dream about her. Not the blood, not the fall, just her voice. The way she used to say my name like it meant something. Rachel looked at her, not with anger, but with the weight of understanding, the quiet tragedy of a woman destroyed by her own need to be loved. Lena, she said softly, what you felt doesn't justify what you did. But thank you for telling the truth. Lena nodded slowly, her gaze distant. The truth, she murmured, was all she ever wanted me to say. Rachel clicked off the recorder. The red light blinked out. Outside the door, the corridor lights flickered once, a faint echo of that night. As Lena was led away in cuffs, her whisper lingered in the empty room, fragile and fading. She was the only one who ever saw me. And in that silence, the boundary between love and ruin blurred completely, setting the stage for the story's final reckoning. Winter had settled over Blackridge Correctional Facility, turning the chain-link fences white with frost. The same gates that once opened for Officer Lena Hartley now locked behind her every morning and night. The clang of metal bars was no longer her command, it was her sentence. Her cell was small, gray, and cold. The cot sagged in the middle, the walls bore faint scratches from former inmates, words half erased, prayers half finished. Lena didn't add her own. She had nothing left to say. Each day passed in quiet repetition, head count, meals, yard time, lights out. No one spoke to her unless required. To them, she was a traitor, a guard-turned-convict, the worst kind. She endured their stares, their whispers. It was strange, she thought, how silence felt louder inside the same walls she once patrolled. She spent her time cleaning floors, folding laundry, keeping her eyes low. But at night, when the block went still, the ghosts returned. Maya's laughter, the glint in her eyes, the metallic echo of that fatal moment. Lena often woke gasping, hands trembling, half believing she still had blood on them. On one such morning, the guard at her door said quietly, "Hartley, you have a visitor." Lena blinked, confused. She hadn't had a visitor since sentencing. When she was escorted to the visitation room, the sight waiting for her made her chest tighten. Detective Rachel Grant stood on the other side of the glass, coat buttoned up against the cold, her expression unreadable. Lena picked up the phone. "Detective," she said softly, her voice hoarse. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Rachel's tone was calm, almost gentle. "I wasn't planning to. But something came up during the property audit. We found this." She slid an envelope across the counter, the same one that had once been evidence. Lena recognized the handwriting instantly, Maya Collins. Her hands shook as she took it. "Why are you giving this to me?" Rachel looked at her steadily. "Because I think she wanted you to read it. All of it." There was no malice in her voice, only a tired kind of understanding, the kind that comes from seeing too many people destroy themselves in the name of love. "I'll be honest with you," Rachel continued. "I still don't know if what happened that night was an accident or something darker. But I do know you cared for her, in your own way. Maybe this will help you face that." Lena swallowed hard. Thank you. Rachel nodded once and stood to leave. Take care of yourself, officer. She paused, then corrected quietly, Lena. As Rachel walked away, the sound of her heels faded into the corridor's hum, leaving Lena alone with the envelope. She sat there for a long moment, staring at her name scrawled on the front. Finally, with shaking fingers, she opened it. The paper was creased, the ink smudged in places, but the words were still clear. If you're reading this, it means things went the way I feared. I never hated you, Lena. I hated the cage, the one we both lived in even when the doors were open. You wanted to save me. I wanted to own you. Maybe we both got what we deserved. Lena's eyes blurred with tears. She turned to the last line, written smaller, more careful than the rest. Love was the only thing we both tried to control, and it destroyed us. A tremor passed through her hands. She pressed the letter to her chest, closing her eyes as the words sank into her like truth carved in stone. For the first time since that night, Lena didn't fight the tears. She let them fall. For Maya, for herself, for the life that had burned down in the name of something that was never really love at all. Outside the cell window, the morning light crept across the bars, cold and pale but steady, illuminating the letter resting in her lap. Somewhere in the distance, a door clanged shut. Another opened. And in that quiet moment, Lena Hartley, inmate and once officer, finally understood the cost of the love she could never let go, an echo that would haunt her long after the world stopped listening.